So one of the really interesting things that has happened this year with the Nintendo Switch 2 is kind of the surprise, to some people at least, explosion of the Nintendo Switch 2 hitting a new level that we have not seen from any other system before in the history of systems. Remember, the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fastest selling system dedicated console of all time, selling 3.5 million units in its first 4 days. And now we're starting to get new information coming out of Japan on just how popular Nintendo actually is when it comes to the Switch 2, but then also the Nintendo Switch 1. So I wanted to detail a number of things that's happening and the reason why this is actually played out the way that it is. I actually still get questions from people saying, well, exactly how did this happen? They bring up the Wii U, they bring up the 3DS, they kind of look at a number of different things that kind of went against Nintendo overall that are still an issue, I would say. It's not like there aren't certain things that are an issue, like game key cards, or for example, like some people having issues with the screen or other things like that. All of that stuff is still relevant, and there will be other issues that come up just like any generation. But in this video, I wanted to kind of discuss the multiple things that people have been asking about on my Twitter page, YouTube, and that I see on comments and just other videos as well. So I actually talked about this a little bit ago, but I wanted to kind of go over it again to give you guys kind of the setup for this. But in Japan, the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Nintendo Switch 1 are absolutely dominating the lineup there when it comes to sales. Now, this is something that multiple sites reported on, saying the dominating, and I wanted to kind of go over kind of how crazy it was. I did talk about it before, but I'm going to add some new context to it. So if you look at the Nintendo Switch 2, over 140,000 units. If you even want to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, you have to go through a lottery system. Nintendo recently apologized for there being shortages, and even some investors were not able to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 because of how popular it is. Now here in the US, which we'll talk about in just a bit, the restocks are coming in, but they're selling out just as fast as they're coming in. But 140,000 units for the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan for the week of June 16, 2025 through June 22nd, 2025. That momentum is something that you're going to need if you want to be able to sell a ton of systems like they did with the Nintendo Switch 1. But speaking of the Nintendo Switch 1, that system is even more interesting at this point because we are 8+ years into the life cycle of the Nintendo Switch 1, and the Switch 1 still sold 12,769 units in Japan. That's actually more than double the next place system, which was the PlayStation 5, that sold 6,006 units. So even the Switch 1 is still getting a lot of people buying it. Now, that popularity overall just tells you, I can just know right there that the Switch 2 is going to be a success. Because if you have a system that's still continuously selling when it comes to its predecessor, despite the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out and that also selling well. So it's not like people are opting to not buy the Switch 2 and then saying, okay, I'll get a Switch 1 instead. They are buying Switch 2 and Switch 1, and then probably those new people are looking to graduate later down the line. That's the type of new level that you hit when you just reach super mass popular status, and the Switch branding is doing that for Nintendo. So for those that were wondering, how is that even happening, or why is this happening, or even some felt that the sales could taper off in the next few weeks, that's definitely not going to happen here, especially in Japan overall. So let's talk about the restocks when it comes down to it, because this is also important. Some maybe felt that things could go awry after the first initial rush. One of the things that I heard quite a bit was, oh, well, the Wii U had a great launch. The first number of weeks people bought it, and then after that, nobody bought it anymore. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like, it's kind of like half truth, because the Wii U didn't have anywhere near the amount of stock that the Nintendo Switch 2 had. The Wii U was not able to fulfill 3.5 million orders worldwide when it comes down to it. The Wii U did not put up the type of numbers that the Nintendo Switch 2 put up. And on top of that, the Wii U was largely available in stores weeks after it came out. Like, with the Nintendo Switch 2, you can find them, but sometimes you have to drive around a little bit. In bigger markets, there's not any at all. When I went to my Walmart, when I go to my Best Buy, they seem to have like maybe one or none of them in stock anytime that I go and check. It's constantly sold out online. That was not the case with the Wii U. First initial bunch was good. The hardcore Nintendo fans bought it. But a week or so right after that, you were able to find them. There were stacks of them all over the place, and they were available online as well. So when people try to say, oh, well, the Wii U did that, No, that's not the case. And let's not even bring up the 3DS. There was two people when I went to go pick up the 3DS back in like 2011 or whatever I bought that system. So there was barely anybody at the launch of that system when it came out back then. This is definitely something that Nintendo, when it comes down to the launch, it's pretty much like the Nintendo Switch 1, but then times that by like 2 or something like that, or by 3. Like, Nintendo was not sure about how well the Switch 1 would do at launch. They did not have enough systems because they were not sure. They were coming off the 3DS, which had obviously not the best launch out there, and the Wii U that also did not have the best launch either when it comes to it. So they had about 2 million units worldwide. Obviously, they fulfilled 3.5 million in 4 days. That is incredibly different from the 2 million to 2.7 million that Nintendo did in the first, I think, 4 weeks or so of the Switch 1 launch back in 2017. So restocks are coming in, people are buying them, and that's what you need. That's the biggest thing that's going to propel this system to being successful well past the hardcore dedicated audience. If people keep on buying it, keep on talking about it, keep on discussing it online, more and more people are going to get interested in it. Which brings me to my next point, and that's the misinformation / obsession when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. Despite whatever you want to say, obviously there's legit criticism, which I agree with when it comes to certain things with the screen that some people are having problems with, or certain issues like game key cards, or tracks or Mario Kart, whatever the case is. Like, those are things that, of course, we've talked about here, we've discussed, and are absolutely an issue, and hope we get those fixed. However, I will say that the trolling or the misinformation or the things that people are doing essentially just to make money and kind of, I would say, manipulate overall, those things are actually helping the system sell as well. I was in line at Nintendo San Francisco to get the Nintendo Switch 2, and I asked a number of people what they felt about certain aspects of the Nintendo Switch 2, what they heard online, and there were multiple people telling me that they saw crazy things people were saying and believed them at first, then actually just did a bit more research and realized that, oh, wait a minute, that's not the way that it is. So the misinformation arc and certain things like that just got more people, in my opinion at least, to research the system, to talk about the system, because eventually people will find the truth overall. Now, sometimes they don't, but at the end of the day, if you keep on repeating a lie or keep on talking about something, it's going to get sorted out, or people are just going to see something that they want and buy it anyway, because it's constantly being talked about, constantly being purchased, constantly being word of mouth. You have people that love it, people that don't, people that say this and that. So that's what I realized by talking to so many people at the launch, and not content creators, but actual just regular gamers that just want to play video games, that are not terminally online talking about all of this. So I will say that the misinformation when it comes down to it, and what's been happening with people that are just constantly talking about it, that don't even like the system or have no plans on even getting it, that's actually helping when it comes to people talking more about it and people picking up the system, which is very interesting, of course. Now, the biggest thing here, and I'd probably say the best thing when it comes to it, is the upcoming games. That is something that some people, because I've seen some headlines saying, oh, well, Nintendo Switch 2, they were able to win the console war, quote unquote, or win without any games. And that is the furthest from the truth when it comes to people actually buying the system. When it comes to Mario Kart, obviously that's a huge, massive system seller. Over 68 million on the Switch 1 and over 8 million on the Wii U with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That is a massive type of game that's going to get a lot of people very interested. It's not just Mario Kart though. The backwards compatibility was massive for people. When I spoke with them, and also for myself, my community, what I see online, the backwards compatibility opens up a slew of incredible games that you can play right there at launch. Many of them getting updates without even actually having to download an update. And that's on top of Nintendo providing updates for games like The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom that run and look way better now at this point. Those are your big first party games. If you skipped out on them or if you didn't buy them, you can pick up the Nintendo Switch 2, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and have a blast, or even Link's Awakening, and those can be your launch or starter games. I had many people tell me, well, yeah, I'm not picking up Mario Kart right now, or I'm going to get Mario Kart later, but I'm actually getting Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, or playing that, or I'm going back and playing Super Mario Odyssey, or I'm going to pick up another different type of game that's now running better or looking better on the Nintendo Switch 2. And a lot of them bought stuff like Guardians of Azuma, or they picked up Street Fighter or whatever else. So when people say that, oh, well, there wasn't a ton of games to play, that's not what people that are actually buying the system overall. That's more of like an online thing that I've seen, because I have so many games that I want to go back and test out and play that play so much better, because if there was one major criticism that I think most people would say about the Nintendo Switch 1 was that a lot of the games did not run as good as they should have ran. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is what I heard people say the most that they're going to go back and play or actually pick up for the first time, that is a game for many people will be the launch title for them, because now it actually functions like it should function, but even way better. I mean, people were just asking for 720p 30 FPS on Switch 1. Now we're getting DLSS 4K and 60 FPS targeting. So that's huge for people when it comes to the games that are already out and available to pick up on the Nintendo Switch 2, in addition to the upcoming games. And that is also another reason why people are buying it and how it's hitting a new level as well. Each month there's some type of new big game to get excited about or to play. When it comes to Donkey Kong Bonanza, obviously we're going to have Metroid Prime 4 at some point. We're going to have Splatoon Raiders as well. There's going to be Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. There's a number of different games that's being only offered as an exclusive on the Nintendo Switch 2. So people are like, okay, cool, I pick it up now. I'll get this, and this as it goes on or down the line. Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games for me, I'm super excited about Pokemon Legends ZA, Switch 2 edition, all of that content, from the backwards compatibility to the massive system seller and launch game of Mario Kart, and of course the upcoming games that have already been laid out that are going to be coming in 2025 is one of the major reasons why Switch 2 has hit a new level and why it's doing so good and it's so popular when it comes to Japan and in the US and worldwide so far. Now, I do want to mention one more thing here, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think one of the biggest things that you're looking at when it comes to previous Nintendo systems and what's going on now is that Nintendo no longer does the handheld and home console where you're buying both systems. You're buying adapters like a GBA adapter, you're buying a Super Game Boy to play your games from one over the other. People see the value just like a cell phone, to where you can use a cell phone at home and you can use it on the go. So you're going to pay a bit more to be able to have that convenience. Whereas you can probably save money if you only had a home phone, but then you can't use that on the go, or you're going to have to buy something else to link it, or a cell phone, or whatever the case is. Now at this point, I think a lot of fans and gamers just overall in general actually see the value in having one system that can play all of your games with the Switch 1 and the Nintendo Switch 2, to where you don't have to buy the home console and the portable and multiple versions. So for example, Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8, those games only came out a few years apart from each other. Now at this point, you just buy Mario Kart World, and then over the course of time, there's going to be new content and stuff added in that can completely change the way that the game is played, make it better, whatever the case is. And that's what they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as there wasn't another 3DS Mario Kart game. They just supported that game for a really long time. So I think that's what people are seeing when it comes to the competition, because nobody else is actually really offering that in a console form factor. And I think that's the reason why Switch 2 has been doing so well. Steam Deck and these portable PCs are not actual consoles like the Nintendo Switch 2 is. There is no Vita, there is no PSP, there is no Game Gear, there's no actual console device that's going up against the Nintendo Switch. It's just portable PCs that operate at a whole different level. And speaking to people online, speaking to people in person, many people just don't want to deal with a portable PC. The setup for Steam Deck or for ROG Ally is completely different than what you do for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is just so much simpler and easier just to hop right in to what you already have overall. Now, I'm not saying that those are bad setups for those systems, but it's a completely different experience than having an actual setup for a Vita or for a 3DS or for a PSP or for a Nintendo Switch 2. So the competition right now is definitely in a different bracket, which is weird why people were constantly trying to sit there and say that PC handhelds were going to be some type of block to the Nintendo Switch 2. Clearly, that was not the case. Now, I think that what's even going to make the Nintendo Switch 2 bigger is that it's just getting going. We still have next year, 2026, where there's rumored to be a number of big games. We could see Animal Crossing. We could see Monolith Soft's new project. We could see the next big 3D Mario game. There is a plethora of titles that could come out. Considering what Nintendo's doing now at this point for 2025, 2026 could be even a bigger year when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 titles, as third parties also get a grip on the system and Nintendo unleashes their second wave of games. And you have to remember, a lot of the first wave here at this point they've been working on for quite some time, probably holding back a little bit. The second wave of games is going to be massive with the Nintendo Directs and everything, so I'm excited to see that. So all of this is kind of contributing to why the Nintendo Switch 2 is so insanely popular and how it's hit a new level at this point, and I think will continue to down the line. But what do you guys think when it comes to everything that I had to say here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.